I'm still here outside my block on the Abbey Road. I'm still here with my placard, which reads now 12 weeks of demolition drilling in Manor Apartments. It's been a week of ups and downs, some setbacks and some moments of joy. It's a strange protest, this one. I've never protested about the principle of money before, but it's all in the line of duty for a protester. You protest where you're needed to be. I protested in Oxford. I've walked on the prestigious Queen's College lawn for 2 hours, where the students don't even venture, and no one stopped me. I protested in Magdalen College for 5 months outside in a very, very bitter winter in 1985. I protested at Leeds University on the English departmental lawn in 1984, before myself and my family moved to London to get my son a scholarship to Eton, which he got. But this protest is very strange. Even more strange than the protest outside the St Pancras Coroner's Court over the inquest into Margaret Walsh's death. Coroner Reid decided in his wisdom that no one was to blame. So I was there outside, the first protest outside a coroner's court in the history of coroner's courts in England. This is the same coroner who had to go last year because his wife had been given some kind of job for which she wasn't qualified, and it gave me great pleasure that I was the first person to stand up against this man called Coroner Reid, who doesn't exist in that post anymore. This protest is about money. I never thought I would be driven to stand outside my block protesting about a property developer with money to burn. But here I am, and I'm not going anywhere. Bruce Ritchie has money to burn, and I'm here because of that. So much money, in fact, that he can renovate my block where I live, where I've lived for 28 years. He can renovate this block 3 times in 7 years. In 2006, it was simply his Eastern European workers that we had to contend with, and they more or less kept to the calming order which Mrs. Byrne organised back then. She is no longer here at my side. 3 years ago in 2010, the calming order was imposed on Stoneforce, who are now Bruce Ritchie's enforcers. Almost in the opening week, Will Wilkins, the manager of Stoneforce, not Pat, the operations manager, but Will, told me that Bruce Ritchie had sold the freehold to this block and his company, Extra Keen, into which company the tenants here paid their rent. Why he would need to tell me that Bruce Ritchie had sold the freehold, had sold his interest in Extra Keen, was gone for good, I don't know. But that information was ventured. It wasn't asked for, because I couldn't possibly know that Bruce Ritchie had gone. Last week I spoke about the Alice in Wonderland atmosphere here, and he hasn't gone. Bruce Ritchie is very much still at the helm here, organising Stone Force. I don't know whether organising the proposed, which order was it now? Restraining order. I think that was Stone Force. But certainly he is now moving against a fellow tenant who happens to be a barrister. And this is a joint, concerted effort to evict Rob, who, if you have looked on the YouTube videos, had the guts to take my placard from me and walk up and down for a few minutes on the footpath, the pavement of Abbey Road, a place where I would never have dared to venture. Apparently the restraining order initiative against me has been dropped. I wonder why. But it hasn't been dropped, it's moved now in a concerted effort by residential land and Stone Force against my neighbour and fellow supporter. This tenant is being evicted by residential land. They want their flat back. As is another tenant, a disabled tenant on the ground floor behind me, who has still nowhere to go in 2 weeks from now. Stone Force are now helping Bruce Ritchie to evict the tenant on the roof, the barrister, whose name is Rob, and is allowing Stone Force to draft some kind of restraining order against Rob. Remember, I was in the frame last week for the same restraining order. This restraining order will facilitate Rob's eviction from the penthouse, which Bruce Ritchie wants back. This is a new low. What can he do? Well, he's a barrister. They'll have their work cut out. But I would like to say that this tenant, who stands accused perhaps of antisocial behaviour for requesting that Stone Force adhere to the calming order which has been imposed by Westminster for the last 9 weeks. He is courteous, deferential, and has taken huge swathes of time out of his life to help tenants with their problems, including myself. It was Rob on the roof that pulled back the tenant, the Turkish man, who was trying to throw himself to his death because he too was being evicted and was to appear in court the following week. It was Rob who put his hand in between the man's body and his belt, and with his own slight build pulled back this poor man, who was so distracted that he was leaning over the curb on the roof, on the wall of the roof, which is no wider than the width of a brick. It's a brick curb. That's all he had to lay on, clutching for his life before he went over. Rob probably saved my own life because I hadn't thought about what would happen if we all fell. Because the tenant was huge and was completely distracted and beside himself and screaming. He was going over, come what may. Rob saved his life, and he saved mine. I can take no credit really, for saving that tenant. Rob did that. He now faces eviction. Not in 2 or 3 weeks, but possibly if the help of Stoneforce, if they can prove that he deserves to have a restraining order imposed upon him, that he's guilty of antisocial behaviour in requesting that the builders desist from breaking the calming order, a judge could evict Rob and his wife from their flat that same day. So this is not just Stoneforce, it's residential land as well. It's been a week of ups and downs. And what I'm reminded of mainly are the two authors, Lewis Carroll and Swift. Lewis Carroll in the scenario of restraining orders, which would carry about as much weight and truth as the itinerary for a Mad Hatter's Tea Party. And Swift, who at his death left to the municipal fathers of Dublin his entire fortune, his estate, so that they might find an asylum, because in his own words, no place needs it more. Well, no place needs regulation more than manor apartments on the Abbey Road. And the money to burn that Bruce Ritchie has at his disposal, he could well fund a hospital. He could do anything. Maybe even an asylum for some of his victims down the years. But no, this man has money to burn. And yet, he's in hiding. Why? Why has he got money to burn? Why is he in hiding? And why is he allowing Stoneforce to aid and abet him in the eviction of Rob, who has rented the penthouse for the last 2 to 4 years? Why is he evicting the tenant behind me, who is disabled and has nowhere to go? 2 weeks on Monday, he and his family. Someone who has lived in London all of his life, who ran a major block in Portman Square for his working life, and who through no fault of his own is severely disabled. He doesn't want to move out of the area, and why should he? He has to move because Bruce Ritchie needs the flat. He needs his flat to sell with the other flat on the ground floor for 1.5 million. We know this price because it's the price on the flat in the land registry, which we have. All this has happened this week, and I only know of the move against Rob being spearheaded by residential land and by Stoneforce, because PCSO Lee came by this morning to inform me that Stoneforce have dropped their intended restraining order against me. How very good of them. Their workers would have had to perjure themselves if it had ever come to court. I apologised to PCSO Lee for the way he was portrayed in the Wood and Vale, but he didn't mind in the least. His visit was one of the high points in a week of feeling utter defeat. He could afford to laugh at the way he was depicted as something of a bit of a wimp. I would like to put that matter straight. He made me feel absolutely great for a few minutes this afternoon. He's only a PCSO, but that man could be put on his own in a position of negotiation in any situation where there's a standoff between the public and the police. He is a marvellous, marvellous negotiator, full of feeling, full of sensitivity and warmth, and could get anyone to give in on a standoff in any situation. What a loss to the police force when this man retires. That was one of the high points in a week of lows. The other high point was on Wednesday afternoon, as I passed by to feed a cat in the 15 minutes I allow myself and the time to grab a cup of coffee and drink it on the forecourt, I noticed some kind of contraption being put up outside my flat, which I thought was to correct the lamp that was installed by Stoneforce and has never really worked. The electrics on the ground floor never can be got to work for more than about a fortnight. So I ignored it. When I came in at 6:30, I noticed it was lit up, and it was a listening, it was a monitor, a noise meter. It gave me one of the high points of my life. I thought the council had installed noise meters. And Barry and I, and Rob, had a wonderful evening, feeling that at long last we'd been rescued by the noise team and we didn't have to police the noise abatement order anymore. But no, it had been installed in fact by Stoneforce. Apparently in the building industry, this is routine. If there's going to be any kind of intended legal action about their infringement of a noise abatement order, this is the strategy they will resort to. And you can imagine just how much validity their own noise meters would have. Again, it would have no more weight than the itinerary for the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. So it's been a week of defeat on the ground. When we phoned Westminster's noise team to ask about meters, we were told that there's a waiting list, and we don't know how long that waiting list is. We do feel abandoned by the noise team, who did impose a noise abatement order, that is true, but who left us, the tenants, to police it, something that was impossible for us to do. We were victimised because of this and threatened with restraining orders. And Rob will find that moves against him to actually augment his eviction. A totally unjust and unfair situation to find himself in. The Wood and Vale article could have said more, but I'm grateful to them for what it did say. And Polly coming out in a downpour, which is beginning now, and taking those photographs. She was in a total, absolute deluge. What more is there to say? There have been some lovely people that have come my way this week. One contractor said they could have, with the money that he's got to burn off, should I say, he could have done the flats in a month, blitzed the block and done them in a month, the 9 flats. But it will take 6 months, maybe more. What else can be said at the end of a week? Thank God it's Friday, and I hope this video can be posted to YouTube, because I've just realised I've overrun the 15 minutes that I'm allowed. I'm very happy at the end of a week. The protest has been demonised. It's also been pathologised. Though I'm not prepared to go into that. It was vigorously rebuffed. They will try all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, I'm here to stay. Thank God it's Friday.